Investigators must wait 16 years before a surprise intervention finally unlocks Schaefer's bloody past. February 1989, Florida State Prison. Schaefer receives a letter from an author called Sondra London. She's fascinated by his story and his graphic accounts of murdering women. She wants to write a book about his crimes, exploring the inner workings of a killer's mind. Schaefer agrees to collaborate. But Sondra's interest is more than just professional. It's deeply personal. She knew Schaefer back in high school. He was her boyfriend.
How could you know someone so very well, so intimately, for so long, and have absolutely no idea that they have a separate life of sex and violence and depravity, and you have no clue?
Back in 1964, Schaefer seemed the perfect catch.
He's tall, good-looking, blonde hair, blue eyes, and he showed every sign of having every social skill that you could want.
But as their relationship developed, Sondra's blue-eyed boy revealed glimpses of his dark side. On one occasion, he flew into a rage over a girl on his street. He believed she was taunting him by stripping in her bedroom window.
And he said, that's where Lee Hainline undresses for me. She knows I'm watching. And he said, I'm gonna put a stop to that. I will never forget the emotion that was bound up there.
Sondra didn't realize her boyfriend put women into two distinct groups.
Schaefer classified people into two categories: virgins and whores. Anyone who he could see flaws in, you were a whore, and he would find you perfect target to use for his dark secrets, for his torture and murder.
And Schaefer considered the girl in the window, Lee Hainline, no virgin.
All of a sudden, Lee became a whore. Lee became somebody that he absolutely hated. Lee disappeared.
Lee went missing in 1969. Police find no trace of her for 9 years. Then her skull is discovered in a canal north of Fort Lauderdale. It is punctured with bullet holes. When investigators cross-reference their evidence files, they make a shocking discovery. Among the personal items found in Schaefer's trinket box was a locket engraved with a distinctive name: Lee.
Her name was spelled oddly. It was spelled L-E-I-G-H. And her parents did ID that the locket was indeed hers. Taking all of that circumstantial evidence together, it could be possible that Schaefer murdered Lee.
If Schaefer did kill her, it means he was already a murderer before he became a police officer. When Sondra learns Lee's fate, she's stunned. She realizes at any point in their relationship, Schaefer could have killed her.
I remembered him being angry at me, and that could have been me.
As with the other missing women, Lee Hainline's remains do not yield any evidence linking the former sheriff's deputy to her murder. For the time being, Schaefer is untouchable, and he knows it. 20 years after Lee's slaying, Sondra sits down with her former boyfriend.
You got my letter and
It's clear he still revels in the misery he's inflicted on his victims. Confident the authorities will never connect him to the crimes.
I asked John, do you still write those stories that you got arrested for? And he wrote back, boy, do I.
Behind bars, Schaefer scrawls graphic tales of torture and murder. Just like the stories investigators discovered in his mother's house years earlier. Now that he's sat in front of an author, he sees an opportunity to publish them for the whole world to read and bask in the evil glory of his infamous crimes. He bombards Sondra with pages and pages of sickening text.
He tried so hard to shock me and disgust me. He started sending me these stories that were vile, absolutely vile. What he was prevented from perpetrating in person, he perpetrated with the pen.
Details from his stories match how investigators believe Georgia Jessup, Susan Wells, and Lee Hainline were murdered. It's as if Schaefer is writing his confession.
Schaefer wrote his stories in the first person, where he's describing it in such a way where he himself can put himself there. It's an extension of reality for him. He's so sadistic, and he's gotten the torture and the pain and the mutilation so well tuned in, make you think it's not just a lunatic writing these.
But Schaefer is careful and crafts his words so as not to incriminate himself. His twisted diligence pays off. When Sondra publishes Schaefer's writings, investigators fail to extract any evidence that could lead to his conviction for more murders.
You can logically place Schaefer at those crime scenes. However, there is no physical evidence to place him at those crime scenes, except for the book that he says is fiction.
It appears Gerard John Schaefer may never be held accountable for the pain, torture, and murder investigators believe he's perpetrated. But Schaefer's story is not finished. His arrogance will ultimately prove his undoing and expose the horrifying scale of his evil. June 1989. In Florida State Prison, former sheriff's deputy and suspected serial killer Gerard John Schaefer taunts detectives. They believe his handwritten stories are accurate accounts of more murders he's committed. But Schaefer claims they are works of fiction, and investigators can prove nothing.
Schaefer thinks like a cop. And in thinking like a cop, it's a cat and mouse game with him. He has control of the situation, and he's playing these cops for fools and loving every minute of it because he is God.
But in time, Schaefer's arrogant gloating will backfire. After Sondra London publishes her book about Schaefer's stories, he begins writing her revealing letters. In one, he claims his story, Murder Demons, describes how he killed two 14-year-olds, Mary Briscolina and Elsie Farmer.
This is the kind of thing that he would write me What kind of crimes am I supposed to confess to? Farmer, Briscolina? What do you think Murder Demons is? You want confessions, but you don't recognize them when I anoint you with them. And we've just gotten started.
Mary and Elsie were last seen alive on October 23, 1972. Construction workers uncovered their skeletal remains 3 months later near Fort Lauderdale. From the start, detectives suspected a link to Schaefer. Mary Briscolina's distinctive brooch was one of the many women's personal items found in Schaefer's bedroom. In his letter to Sondra, Schaefer has hinted for the first time that he is responsible for their deaths. And his sickening claims don't end there. He is suspected of 32 murders, but boasts it's just the tip of the iceberg.
Schaefer liked to pretend that he was, quote unquote, the greatest serial killer of women in this century. And my challenging him with this brought this response from him. I'm not claiming a huge number, he says. I'd say it runs between 80 and 110.
Reflecting on the shocking details of Schaefer's letters, Sondra realizes the former deputy has finally slipped up. The letters are admissions of guilt, and she must hand them over to investigators.
I began to reach the conclusion that I had in my hand actual murder confessions, no matter what he called them, and that there were going to be a lot of cases that might possibly be able to be closed.
Schaefer's correspondence with Sondra stuns detectives. After careful analysis of the letters, they reopen 3 cases of missing women they suspect Schaefer of killing. Detectives plan to confront him with his own words, get him to crack, and reveal the whereabouts of his missing victims.
This would give the families closure. They would understand that their children will never come home. And with all of these cases, the mothers always had hope.
On Friday, December 1st, 1995, they arrange with Florida State Prison to interview Schaefer the following week. But any hope of justice is about to be dealt a bitter blow.
On Monday, they get a call from the prison saying, "Don't bother coming up here. Schaefer has met his demise." If I were the detective on the other end of that phone, my heart and my stomach would hit the floor.
The day before, Schaefer was brutally attacked by his cellmate for ratting out his fellow prisoners.
He stabbed Schaefer 18 times in each eye. He cut Schaefer from his left ear to his right ear across his mouth. The message is, snitches no longer see, snitches no longer talk, snitches die.
Investigators' hopes of recovering the missing victims have been dashed.
Schaefer has the last laugh. Schaefer carries to the grave confessions, maybe where the bodies were. Lots of anger, because we're right back where we started. Cold cases that will probably never be closed now.
But for some, his brutal death is a fitting end to a despicable man.
When I found out that Schaefer had been killed, it was like a horrible stink had just drifted out the window, and for the first time in years, I could breathe fresh air.
When he joined the Martin County Sheriff's Department, Gerard John Schaefer looked every inch a model law enforcement officer. Handsome, intelligent, dedicated. But behind his badge lurked a cruel murderer. His crimes will go down in history as some of the vilest, most depraved acts ever investigated.
Gerard John Schaefer is the epitome of an evil monster. When I look into his eyes, the man has no soul. He has no conscience.